Hey guys, this will be video 8 for the how to restore a vintage Gibson Explorer, and going quite well. I'll talk about some of the color for the first 5 or 10 minutes, and I honestly can't imagine this being more than a 20 or 30-minute video because there's really just nothing to talk about, and I primarily just want to do the video to show the color progress, and it happened fairly quickly. It was really cool how it just really started turning tobacco very quickly. So this is since video 7. I can't remember. I think that was only like a day or two ago, but this is only like 3 more coats maybe. And rather than rushing it, I really tapped the brakes and I slowed down, and I just did 2 fairly wet coats each day. So I guess it probably has been about 4 coats. And I think I showed in the last video where I had this taped off up here and taped off down there, and then I darkened out the middle. But the cool thing about this, this is still nowhere near the finished guitar, but it's a real slow step in that direction where you're leaving some of the original worn-in areas that was shown on the neck when it first got shipped to me. But you're just trying to blend in the heel to where it looks, original. It's getting pretty close. I got a real light spot right there, a very light spot right there, and it's fairly light right here. But the cool thing is I was able to, when I ran out of the lacquer, I don't even know where the lacquer is. It's not in the heating station. Oh, here it is. When I ran out of the lacquer, or when I got like halfway down, when it got to about halfway full, I can't remember if I filled it up and shot some more drops in it and then shot all that, but I'm pretty sure I did. But long story short, when I went back to the second ratio, because the first ratio had 30 drops per fairly full canister, about 5% below a full 6 ounces. And when I came back, when it got way below a half, this is what it was. When it got well below a half, or closer to 2 ounces, I filled it fairly close to full of the clear M610 out of the can, which has more solids and covers, as you can see, covers really, really well. And not just color, but surface as well. It's amazing how well this guitar is building. It's just really beautiful. But I've been doing some very detailed sanding. But long story short, when I had it full of nitro and I got ready to shoot some more dark walnut tint, I dropped, you would think, okay, well, if you added about a little more than a half, then you would have just gone about 15 drops to keep the ratio the same. But what I did, because it wasn't covering, it was covering very safely, but I knew that I could go a little bit darker. So rather than shooting 15 drops, I dropped 20 drops into the formula, which was 30 drops to 6 ounces. So that would be like 15 drops to that amount right there. And the amount that I added probably should have only gotten about 15 drops, but I dropped in 20. So the ratio would probably be safe if you were at like 32 to 34 drops, but anticipate it covering fairly quickly, and you need to know what you're doing. And I never really thinned it very thin at all. I just, anytime I had, 5 or 6 ounces, no, not even 6, would have been about 5.5 ounces, I was only putting in about a half an ounce of lacquer thinner. And there was a part of me in the past video when I kept talking about cleaning the gun, I kept calling it clear lacquer, and it's difficult. That was actually lacquer thinner. Anyone that has ever cleaned up a spray gun, they know that you're not cleaning it up with clear lacquer, you're cleaning it up with clear lacquer thinner, or either stained, like washed out lacquer thinner, thinner, thinner. I have to keep saying thinner, thinner, thinner. So sometimes I'll be thinking one thing and I say another. But so I say all that to say this: the formula is about 30 to 35 drops per 6 ounces of lacquer, and it turned into, within about 2 to 3 days, it turned into a really beautiful guitar. Let me get in the camera and see what that might be showing. And if the camera is showing it Bombay red, it's not Bombay red. It is mahogany up under a walnut stain. So yes, there is a red tint going on there, but even the sides are going to get considerably darker. They're going to pretty much black out. But I'm getting really close to what I want with the back right here. Anything that I do additional as far as the full surface back here, it'll be probably that formula then thinned out. In other words, I would probably just take that exact mix right there, but bring some more epoxy up, but go with just a little bit more lacquer thinner to cut it just a little bit more wet. And I've already talked about this in the past video. You can kind of tell what's going on by how clear the I'll just use this board because this board is fairly white, but you can just really tell by what's going on since it's not covering the glass. That's a very, very safe mix. Very safe mix. Okay, and then when you get ready to do the front, that's what I meant by compartmentalizing this guitar, where I'm doing the neck up to like 75 to 85%, maybe 90%, doing the body up to about 75%. You might think, wow, that's real close to finish. No, it's really only about 70% close to finish. It is, but as you move into that final 30% realm, then you want to start cutting your lacquer, and you might have another 5 days worth of lacquer where you're only shooting like one coat a day and really, really letting it cure. Well, not cure, but dry before you start doing any sanding. Because the cool thing right now, I actually shot a coat of lacquer this morning. It's been drying about 3 hours, maybe 4 hours, but it doesn't feel. I can pick up a guitar that's been aging for like 5 or 6 months, and you can just feel the dryness. You can just feel it. You can tell that this guitar was recently sprayed with lacquer, whether it was today or maybe it was late last night. You can just feel kind of the softness. So with that said, you have to be very careful with it so you don't introduce any damage. But I hope the light will pick up the beauty of the guitar a little bit. And let me get behind the camera. It's just not picking up very well. Yeah, it's really frustrating because what I see, I can still see through especially like right there with the light shining into it, I can see every bit of the mahogany grain. And if you take it outside on a sunny day, that's when you realize, oh yeah, I got a long ways to go. It's still very, very light. But if you flip out all of the lights in the house, except for maybe one lamp over in the corner, right now you could barely tell that it's semi-transparent. It'd be very, very dark. And I think that was showing back there. I think when I stood it up in the last video, you just got the glare from the light. But you can see, I hope you can see that it's pretty dark and it's beautiful. And what does it look like with the neck? Well, let's just see. When I hold them together and I'm kind of beginning to assess the two, I'm beginning to see them come together as far as truly getting ready to turn into a guitar. And the reason I'm doing this video is that's exactly what's about to happen. I'm about to remove this tape and mix up some epoxy and epoxy this guitar together, and then I'm going to finish it as a husk. Not going to do any of that on camera because I want to be very cautious and very meticulous about the job. And quite frankly, speaking of that, check time. That's weird. It's only 10 minutes, but I don't want to do any of that work on camera because I can't risk nicking or scratching this because it'll really set me back. But anyway, but I did want to just kind of talk off the top of my head about the whole process, the whole process of sticking to the job that I originally presented, where I'm going to do the body up about, we'll just say 75%, the neck up to 75%, connect them together, whether it's epoxy or whether it's tight bond. Eric and I have agreed we're going to epoxy it together. And then, I know what it was, because I'd mentioned in one of the videos, I've still got just a little bit of blend shaping to do right here. So I did not want these sides right in here to be the finished guitar just yet. So even if I sand it down to raw mahogany just right here on the very end to get it to blend together, I'll be able to start building up some color, especially, believe it or not, sometimes you could just take a brush and paint the raw parts and then start sanding, do some more brush work, sand it, then about an hour, sand the whole thing a little bit, and then just start building coats. No different than how you're going to be building coats right here in order to darken up this light stripe, this super thin, where I sanded it down in order to reveal the maple up under it, so that eventually I could cover it up fairly much chocolate. But I'm going to ease into this because, quite frankly, I got to tell you, it looks a lot cooler than I was expecting it to, with some of the maple showing through. So it's Eric's guitar, whatever he wants me to do. Because we had this conversation a couple of months ago where he mentioned something about possibly leaving that. It was kind of cool that it was relicked a little bit, but I felt like this part looked like it had just been sanded. That definitely looked kind of relic right there, just this bottom line, because that was also consistent with number 74, I think it was, or one of the guitars where we saw a picture where it was kind of thin right there. So if anything, that'll give it some age. And right now it's glossy, shiny, but and I'm going to continue with this project as if I'm doing a truly finished guitar, where I'm going to be buffing it, wet sanding it up to like 2,000 grit, 2,500, then buffing it and waxing it and bringing it to a gloss. And then whatever Eric decides, if he wants it to look more vintage correct, then I'll hit it with some quad alt steel wool if he wanted to, and knock 100% of the shine off. But I want to take it up to a pretty guitar first and foremost, and then we'll determine, if we want to matte out the finish a little bit. Okay. So the next step, and I'm glad I thought of this. I'm just going off the cuff. When you're doing any of your tape work, always do your tape work so that you know that everything will be taped in component form. Like if you knew you were going to be doing some sort of decorative blending right here, well, don't do all of that tape work first and then tape your fretboard and fold over and try to blend it all in. You want to go ahead and tape the very first thing. Always tape your binding and or the actual fretboard itself. Even if your fretboard is rosewood or ebony and real dark and your neck is real dark, go ahead and define that fretboard, because what's going to happen, according to how many lacquer coats you build up, you're obviously going to be sanding along that tape to try to keep that from stepping too much. But just be prepared that eventually, if you do this much lacquer work, you're going to have a step right there. And eventually you're going to have to come back at the very end of the job and tape off the fretboard as you're doing your, just on the top. And then when you're spraying your lacquer, now you're kind of filling in that step right there. And it's really difficult, even like right here, see there's binding up under there, but there's going to be a little bit of a mill thickness step from the lacquer to the raw binding, and that's just guitar building. And then right there at the last, before you really get, well, I want to get all of my color on this before I remove the binding, because before I remove the tape over the binding, because once I remove the tape over the binding on this, or the tape over the fretboard or fretboard binding, I want my color to be finished, and I want to be prepared to move into the clear coat stages where I'm building like 5 to 7, maybe 10 coats of clear. So just plan your tape work so that as you remove tape, it reveals the original tape line over the fretboard, and everything is still really well protected. Even if you came in here and just sprayed this black and just completely smoked it out, well, once you get ready to reveal that beautiful cream binding or the beautiful old vintage rosewood fretboard with the old dot inlays, then simply by removing that tape, well, you didn't lose it. In other words, just tape once, paint your job, and once you remove the tape, you know that you're finished. And one way to have done this is, I would say, go ahead and just do just the tape on the side, so that all you're doing is removing that one small strip. But I found it's easier to just go ahead and tape off the whole thing, and at this point, remove all the tape, and then just retape off just the fretboard when you get ready to do your blend work. Because you don't want to come in here with an X-Acto. Let me back up. You probably could. Let's just think about this. You probably could take an X-Acto knife and just raise the tape. Nah, I probably don't want to do that, because when I remove this tape, I want to hit it with a heat gun just a little bit, blow dryer, and then I want to remove all that tape at once, so it's a real clean peel. I don't want to be up here with an X-Acto knife trying to scrape just the side up so that I could then, slice cut it. But we'll see. Anyway, now I'm rambling. But that's kind of all the part of doing your paint work, your nitro work, is just process through what you want it to look like when it's finished, and ask yourself, would it be a mistake to take this neck up 100% finished, even the matte sanding or buffing and all that, and then try to start gluing it in? Absolutely, that would be a huge mistake. So know when to stop and move into a different operation. Okay, so with that said, let's do just that. This is going to be such a short video. And if you're watching this video, it's because you're kind of familiar with the series and you really want to see it come together. Or maybe you've never done this before and you want to hear somebody that has done it quite a few times, maybe just kind of talk off the top of the head, even if maybe it's not really all that valuable of information, but you can kind of see it as it materializes. Say that, I might just pause if I can't get control of this tape. There it is. I found some. Oh, I thought I had it going. What's really strange, here's one thing to think about, because I almost reached up here and got this chisel and started like doing that. But about a year ago, I was doing this exact same thing where I was holding a neck like this, and I was doing something, and you know what, if I didn't slip, I had just sharpened this chisel to an absolute mirror edge, and I came in and caught my thumb right there. The chisel completely went under the skin and came out this side over here. And man, it was one of the worst cuts I had ever experienced. And that was only like 6 or 8 months ago. And I just now got the full functionality back where it still is a little stiff. But I say that to say this is usually when you screw up and get hurt really bad. Because you're thinking, oh, I'm just going to try to rush that tape, and you start pushing on it, and then you slip and hurt yourself. So Always be thinking about the tools you're using. And it's amazing. It seems like every time I ever got hurt really bad, it was at the last 5 minutes of the job that I was trying to get behind me. And I'm glad I'm seeing this because there's a bit of a gap right here where these two got glued together with the tight bond. I started to do this the other night, but I was getting ready to do that tape. I'm going to put a little bit of a flat of epoxy in there and let it dry really well. And then this side over here it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. But you could just, when you're epoxying it together, in other words, if you're going to tight bond this neck in, definitely go ahead and get that filled in right there. And what I'm showing is exactly what I was talking about. When I did this tape work here, I always knew that eventually I wanted to remove just that tape right there, but not affect what's going on at the fretboard and the end of the neck there, so that when I get ready to glue it into the body, I didn't have to do any additional tape work, or I did not have to retape that or run the risk of scratching something. I think I could leave every bit of that on there because that's just all internal. Okay, so that's ready to glue in after a little bit of cleanup, and also after I do that patchwork right there. And then the question would be, how much of this do I want to expose? Let me think for a moment, because I don't think there would be anything wrong with taking that white off, but I also don't think there would be anything wrong with leaving it on. Oh, speaking of that, that's exactly another part of the operation, the taping operation. See, I taped off all the binding, completely folded that blue tape over so that if I decided to take this paper off, it wouldn't get into my binding taping. So since I'm rambling on about that, the question would be, is there any need to remove that? And I would kind of say probably not, because I just need to be able to verify the center line again, even though I'm about 99% confident that I could get this tape out of the way right here. And oh yeah, I completely forgot. That was the whole objective, is to get that tape off so I can fit that neck in and do some additional sand work. A lot of times, as I'm doing these videos, I'm processing through the job as to the order of operations. 23 minutes. Take a little bit of it off right now. I'm probably going to end up taking most of it off. At a minimum, I want to expose that bridge location so I can re-engineer my center lines. Okay, so let's see if it'll fit in there without any issue. Oh, probably don't need to put, let me see. I mean, it's close. Close enough for rock and roll. See, I went ahead and clear coated that, or actually shot it with the nitro as well. But you can see how nicely the blue tape works. See, there's a little bit of a step there, but by the time you start doing all your finish coats, that'll just fade away. And it's cool. I've picked up some extremely valuable guitars, and you can feel that little lacquer line. Let's see if we can scrape. See that, how that stained bled through a little bit. Let's get that clean. Or at least assess what it's going to need. Because at this point, you don't want to be getting out chemical and trying to clean, because you'll just make matters worse. So it's manageable. It'll be able to be scraped out. But before you do your clear, you want to have that binding really beautiful. Very nice tight fit. See what it looks like. This is the first time I've ever seen it as a guitar. Yeah, looks great on camera. Very nice. And let me just move a little bit closer, because I want to see. Definitely can see the Bombay trying to come out. And that's just mahogany. It is, if it's a red base, then it's going to want to have that burgundy. But we got a long ways to go to darken out, blend this in. But nonetheless, I think it's going to be really beautiful. And this is what I was talking about that I did not get to show because I lost it in that one video. I'll try not to breathe in the camera. Let me take a breath. See how light it is right there? That's pretty much intentional, because I knew I was going to be working that area quite a bit more. Still got our nice tight joinery. It's going to be a very nice job. And you can see how the bottom edge of the neck overlap. Bottom edge of the neck overlap is just beautiful, how it's resting on the maple. And I don't really have time to do it, but I failed to cover in like 2 videos ago where I was talking about fitting this. You can put some wax paper, a very thin piece of wax paper, just lay it down in the bottom, and then push all this together, and you should be able to just barely slide that wax paper out, or you know, like In other words, they should be consistent. If the bottom of the tenon is just barely resting on the top of the mahogany, then the same should apply for your, for the joint up there. But if it's not, then you can start assessing why it's not. And then my answer to that is, if anything, I would loosen up the bottom edge of the tenon just a little, and allow the epoxy to do its job and give me a really beautiful fitment up here as well. But there's a part of me I would kind of like to do some of the color on this top, but I'm not. I'm just going to probably make a pencil line. I don't know. Well, I'll figure it out. In other words, once I do all the epoxy glue in, I'm definitely capable of coming in here and scraping out any that might have overrun. But why do that when you could just put some blue tape around there and epoxy it all together, and then remove the blue tape, and then do all of your lemon, yellow, amber, tobacco burst. Keep in mind also, I just thought of something. This is all going to be blacked out up here. Yeah, it's really not even going to be. It's not going to be transparent up here. It's not even going to be semi-transparent up here. It's going to be pretty much blacked out, the whole perimeter. Then the only time it'll start getting semi-transparent is probably like right in this area right here, or at least that's the design. It might go up a little bit, but we'll see. I'll study the picture some more. But if you were going into like a clear top or a very, very vibrant top, then yeah, you would need to protect that. See, in other words, you wouldn't want any epoxy to get into that maple, and then you come in here and start white staining with the real pretty lemon yellow, and it's penetrating into this maple everywhere except where the epoxy had sealed it. So be careful with that. Or maybe go ahead and do your initial base of lemon on your maple, and maybe one thin coat of lacquer. A lot of different ways you could do it. Push it back together. Let's see if I can get a picture of it like that. As far as what I see, it's incredible. And that's cool. When you look at that view, you see the darkness of the tobacco blending in with the neck really, really beautifully. And I mean, if you flipped off some of these crazy lights that I've got going on right here, I think it would probably look pretty darn good, even just like that right there. I've still got a long ways to go, though. And let's see if it will pass the Explorer test. I know the 58 will do this. Yeah, no hands. So I know you can't see that, but, and that's not the table. This table is perfectly, let's let it rock a little bit. Pretty cool. Yeah, I had mentioned this to Eric, and yeah, let's do it. We'll take it a second. Because I've still got some lacquer work to do. I'll be shocked if it happens, but where I'm going with this, the center line of this design in all the past guitars that I've built is perfectly balanced. Like if you lay a straight edge right there, and you set this whole let me do this since we're not in a hurry. This will just guarantee I don't run the risk of putting a little bit of a dent in the back or a scratch. Okay, I'm gonna look down the table. It's pretty close. Okay, if you see what I'm doing, I'm assessing the bounce, and I've got that straight line perfectly in line, at a minimum parallel with the center line of the body. If I can get it to float, that'll be cool. But you see my point. The guitar is, let me look at where the straight line, I'm so close. Man, it's amazing how close I am. Okay, basically right now, I'm very, very close to the center line of the guitar, and I'm about a quarter of an inch off the center of the neck. So with that said, the whole idea of how this guitar feels on your body is very balanced. I know I don't have the electronics in it yet. By the time but see, by the time you load it up with all of this weight right here, all that stuff is on center line. So that's kind of irrelevant right at the point where you get to the wiring harness and a few potentiometers, and I'll just grab some stuff, stuff like, so I say all that to say this: by the time you start getting a little bit of weight, see what starts taking place? This guitar starts getting very, very close to balanced. So anyway, very interesting design. And I really just kind of tripped up on that by chance when I was first building the very first 58, or maybe some of the early ones. And also this balance point right here typically ends up being somewhere in here on a quality guitar. It doesn't matter what guitar, any guitar, you want it to pretty much have a balance point somewhere in this location of the bridge pickup. See, that's the bridge pickup right there. That would be the bridge pickup. So there was a lot more engineering with this design than probably anyone knows, or very few people know. Because when you look at it, you just think, oh yeah, they were just trying to be exuberant and, kind of flamboyant with these wild lines and stuff. But they were within that footprint, within that perimeter, they were building a really well-balanced guitar. Didn't scratch up too bad. That was a little bit risky, considering I just sprayed that lacquer this morning. Let's see if I screwed it up. I don't think we introduced any damage. Should be good, but got to get that Bombay out of it because right now it's just too red. And it's going to be fairly dark, so much so that if you walked in a room that didn't have any lights on, you wouldn't realize it was a semi-transparent guitar at all. And got a lot more to do on this area right here as well. So with that said, I don't think there's anything else to talk about, and I don't want this to be a 4-hour video as far as upload. And I've noticed there's something going on with eBay. If I do a video over 30, 45 minutes, and we're getting close to that right now at 38 minutes, it takes like 3 to 4 hours for that video to upload. And I don't know if YouTube is getting more strict about their videos, but I do know that your videos have to go through a filtering process where the algorithms are, have to be considered. And I do not do any advertising or any affiliation, so they probably put me on the back burner as far as importance. But nonetheless, I'm sure they're also verifying your language based on, did you say it was permissible for kids to watch? And I don't. I always say it's not for children. And no advertising, none of that affiliation crap. So, but if you said it was for children and then you were there was a lot of profanity, you would probably not, the video probably would not be allowed or something like that. So anyway, so the internet AI police is probably a good thing for those circumstances to keep people protected. So that said, I will end the video, and can't think of anything else worthy of talking about. I mean, there's plenty of other stuff to talk about. I will hit this briefly, just for another minute or two. Let me pause. Okay, as you're moving into a finished stage like this right here, where you're about to do epoxy work that'll take you maybe 45 minutes to do, but then you cannot touch this guitar for another 24 hours, well, you need to have something lined up, or at least in the works. And two things that are in the works, I need to get in touch with Ed. And Ed, if you're watching, I'm going to get in touch with you and see if you're ready to proceed with your Explorer, the Gold Top. And if that's the case, then I can go ahead and start your guitar project and, you know, have it in second place as I'm working on this guitar. But then as this guitar is in the spray booth drying for 24 hours, then we can focus on your Explorer. But if you're at a point to where you're not in a hurry, or you want to pause and wait a little bit, then I've got a vintage Strat here that I bought off of a guy off eBay, and he commented the other day and said, "Hey, I recognize that body." And I think I spoke with his wife, a really sweet lady. I think they were in Montana. I'll find out, but I may be wrong. But nonetheless, he had owned this guitar for a very long time, and it was in pretty rough condition. And they went ahead and just decided to sell it, and I was the lucky high bidder. And I'll talk about the restoration project of this guitar, unless Ed is ready to start his project. Then I want to prioritize Ed's Gold Top P90 Explorer, whether it's a 58 replica, whether it's a 58 footprint or an 81 footprint. But if Ed is like, "No, give me another week or two," or something like that, or whatever, I don't know that because I haven't spoken to him. If that's the case, then I'll start presenting this project right here. But I don't want to present this project because I'm in Explorer mode right now, and I like staying there, and would really prefer to go ahead and get Ed's project going. So if you reading between the lines, if you're watching this video, Ed, I'll give you a shout here fairly soon, and we'll see if you're ready to progress forward on that. If not, I got that project right there we can start experimenting with, and it's pretty tragic. It's got some pretty nasty cracks. It's cracked so bad, it's completely cracked right there, completely in two, cracked right there really bad, completely in two, so much so that and I don't know his name, the guy in Montana that had this project, even though he commented, I didn't see a name. So there was a screw in this, and I don't know if he did that work or just bought this guitar that way. It looks like it might be a 1981 0981, and I can't really make out this right here. Is something, it looks like it says ROR 50 INSP for inspection, because it's a circle like a stamp. But I read online that RR means that it was sent back to the factory and got refinished. And it has in a pencil mark, the number 2 and then a small c. And I don't know what that means. But that was under all the original heavy sealer. And so this is a really cool project, but right now it's pretty much dead in the water. There's 0 tap tones because it's broken so severely. And even so much so that, here's the guitar, but it broke so bad that it actually separated from the top part of the body. So if anything, this is an incredible candidate to show, no matter how bad of a condition the body's in, this thing's going to be off the charts as far as tone. But it's going to be terrifying what it takes to get there. It's not going to be just a matter of cleaning out these joints a little bit and squidging some glue in there. I'm probably going to be breaking this body apart in a controlled fashion so that I can get to those joints that have had decades of paint running down in them, and probably lemon oil and sweat and beer and all that crap, and get it cleaned out so that it can truly be put back together. But even if I do controlled breaks up here, I'll do controlled cuts somewhere down in here in the body. But this will be a terrifyingly interesting project. And I'm going to excuse me, I'm going to try to video every bit of that. But I still haven't designed my plan of attack as far as bringing this guitar back to life. So again, I'd rather work on Ed's Explorer, and but if not, we've always got a guitar laying around we can work on. So I appreciate you guys dropping in, and going once, going twice. I don't think there's anything else to talk about other than I didn't mention. I'm pretty certain that this at one point was a very rare color called Maui Blue, and according to how well it goes back together, I don't really think it's a candidate for a clear coat guitar. And to me, clear coat guitars, Strats, are kind of boring. They have a little bit of appeal, but then all of a sudden it's like, okay, yeah, we've seen that before. Oh yeah, so that's ash. Oh, awesome. Okay, yeah, but look at this kick-ass, rare, funky Maui blue green. I mean, this thing just screams Maui blue. So anyway, if I can find the Maui blue, I probably will go back that route, but we'll see. And then the cool thing is, I used to have a George Lynch that I'll use as reference if I have to do cut work on this. At a minimum, I'll use this as a reference so that I don't lose control of the guitar and stuff. So this was an incredible guitar. It was the actual George Lynch with the tiger top. Very sexy guitar. But we'll finish them from there, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks.